I'm Nolan Beilstein, and welcome to another episode of Gen Z in Manufacturing, a podcast where I interview young people about their journeys in manufacturing, how they intend to influence the industry, and what they are looking for from an employer. For this episode, I welcome Emily Molstad, a 27-year-old CEO and co-founder at VALIS Insights, a startup and member of Manufacturing USA Institute REMADE that develops AI-powered software designed to close the loop on a circular economy for metal fabrication. Molstad co-founded VALIS after spending over 5 years at Solvus Global, a technology solution provider that specializes in additive manufacturing, machine learning, and sustainable materials processing. The concept for VALIS originated at Solvus and was eventually entrusted to Molstad as a co-founder by one of her mentors in 2022. Molstad was also named to Forbes 30 Under 30 North America 2024 edition for manufacturing and industry. Before we hear from Molstad, please make sure to like and share this episode of Gen Z in Manufacturing. To view previous episodes, visit manufacturing.net. If you are a member of Gen Z and would like to discuss your experience in the manufacturing industry, please get in touch with me, Nolan Beilstein, at nolan@ien.com. All right, Emily, well, thank you for joining Gen Z Manufacturing. I wanted to start off talking about your college career. You mentioned that you were introduced to recycling and manufacturing during your first semester of college, and you met some mentors there that helped you reach your current position. So I wanted to ask, what about that mentorship inspired you to follow those people?
Yeah, so when I was in my first semester at WPI, Worcester Polytechnic Institute, I took a course called Recycle the World, and um, it was taught by Professor Appelian, Duran Appelian, and one of the teaching assistants was Sean Kelly. So Sean Kelly was Duran's PhD student, and they were doing research in aluminum recycling, and the entire course was really structured around the importance of circularity, of understanding that, we as engineers that are just starting off our careers really need to be mindful of the impact of what we develop, the products that we create, the things that we design, and what happens to them at end of life, so we can preserve our natural resources and the need for that as demand continues to grow into the future. And I had a passion for sustainability, and it really just resonated with me around the emphasis that they were placing on sustainability and the responsibility that we have. And they were very open to working with undergraduate students and helping them to find research opportunities, and just kind of kick things off. But I was able to reach out at the end of the course and say, hey, this was a topic that really interested me. I want to learn more. I want to get more exposure. And I was able to do that and get connected to different research opportunities, and then just grew my career from there. Really, it was kind of the start of things.
And you mentioned that they listened to what you had to say. Could you elaborate a little bit on just how they made you feel welcome, even as an undergrad, when they're working on PhD stuff?
Yeah, the importance was there was no kind of dumb question, right? You can ask anything, and they really took the time to provide the context and the explanations, whether it's technical or really getting to the material science of it, or more like the macroeconomic trends that are driving forces for the need for recycling, and just having kind of that open door policy where I knew that I could go talk to them, I can go to their office. Encouraging any ideas that I had, and just really validating that you have contributions to make, and that your work and your perspective is valued, even if you're early on in your career and you still need more training and more education. Just you have a seat at the table, and that they're going to listen to you.
Did you ever envision yourself being in charge of a company as a college freshman?
Not as a freshman, not as a first year student, for sure. That really came out of my first internship at a company. So I interned at a company also based out of Worcester, Massachusetts, called Solvus Global, and it was founded by Duran Appelian and Sean Kelly. So these mentors that I've had since freshman year went on to found a company after Sean finished his PhD, along with his colleague Aaron Burt. And I joined their team as a materials engineering intern when they had 3 full-time employees, and it was 6 of us interns. And I loved working at that early of a stage, on that small of a team, just being directly hands-on, kind of thrown into things, just getting to take ownership right away, despite it being my first, real role in engineering. And I had sort of a pseudo exit interview at the end of the summer. I decided to keep working with them through the school year, but at the end of the summer, they'd asked me, what is my 5-year plan? And I said, this is really cool. I would love to be, in that CEO level role within the next 5 years, sort of running my own company, and it ended up happening in 4 years. So that was a pretty cool track to be on.
As you talk to some of your peers around the same age, do you get the feeling that Gen Z wants to be in leadership positions? Do they have that ambition?
Yeah, I think there's something very entrepreneurial about Gen Zs, and entrepreneurship requires leadership and having those leadership qualities, of being able to kind of stand out on your own and be able to share that vision, and you kind of look at like side hustle culture in younger people, and wanting to have an impact and have that kind of control of your own future, right? And so I do think it aligns really well with Gen Z being aligned with and really looking for leadership opportunities and taking that ownership.
You mentioned that the majority of your professional career has been in a startup culture. So how do you think that startup culture aligns with Gen Z's values?
I believe that Gen Z really values flexibility of being able to have work-life balance, which I know maybe it sounds very ironic to attribute work-life balance to the startup environment, because there's kind of that startup grind and there's a lot of work that goes into building a company, of course. But when you are in that position, when you are in a startup environment, there's a lot more room for creating a schedule and a work style that is your own and that works best for you. Because ultimately, what works best for you is going to be what makes the company most successful. And so it allows you to find that cadence of what really works best for you now, as a younger person in your career, but shaping it and evolving it as your own life evolves. And so flexibility being a major one. There's a high level of authenticity and vulnerability that comes with a startup environment. It is hard work. There can be long days, and you're working on small teams really closely with all different backgrounds and all different disciplines on your team. And Gen Zers value building those connections and getting to know people, and whether it's through remote work or in-person work, of having those connections that aren't purely professional, right? It's in a professional environment, but really getting to build relationships that are meaningful. And I think a startup environment really fosters that, because you're working so closely with your other teammates.
So as a college freshman, what kind of personalities did you think executives had?
I would say as a college freshman, my perspective on executives was, classic type A, incredibly organized, fearless. You have to be courageous, strong leaders, and it really comes down to having that courage and being able to execute on that vision. So starting from first step and knowing, okay, where do you want to end up, and visualizing that roadmap and putting it into place and bringing on the right team members to get you there.
Now that you have assumed a leadership position, how has your view shifted? Is it about the same? Anything changed?
I think a lot of those things still apply, of course. A huge part of being in an executive role is recognizing your own strengths and your own weaknesses, but really recognizing that in your team members and facilitating their growth. You can't do it on your own, right? Executives are not executing on everything themselves. And so I think I was younger, maybe had a much more hierarchical kind of view, and being in a startup environment, especially, we're much more flat. Our structure is we all wear many different hats. We all cover a lot of different bases and skill sets, and it's more fluid in finding the balance between delegation and leaning on your teammates and playing to each other's strengths and weaknesses.
How many people do you oversee at VALIS?
There are 7 of us full time. And then we have a part-time intern.
What's the age range for your employees?
It's relatively wide. So from early 20s to, I believe, early 40s. I actually don't know the the age breakdown of everyone. But we are primarily Gen Zers, but then we do have kind of millennial and Gen X represented.
Do you ever notice any generational gaps between how the work ethic between generations, or some sort of generational divide?
Not really that I can say. We've really focused on building out the team with a cohesive culture around. We all really prioritize learning. We did a team core value assessment at our company offsite in December, and it was funny for all of us. We had love of learning as one of our top character strengths, and we found that is kind of the core of when you love learning. That's what allows you to overcome challenges, to find a lot of motivation and excitement in the work that you're doing, and that's the driver of how we all execute. And so there aren't a lot of differences. If anything, it really comes down to just references to things, right? Sometimes jokes don't always land if it's there's a generational gap in the things that we're referencing or the phrases that we're using. But no, we all have a very friendly rapport with each other, and I don't feel those generational divides, and I don't think they do either, to a large degree, but I'm sure it's always there.
For employers that are having a hard time bridging a generational gap among their workforce, what kind of advice would you give to them?
Always just to listen, right? Listen to what your teammates, your colleagues, your reporting employees are saying, as far as what's the environment that they thrive best in. What are the communication styles that they like and that are most received? Because communication is everything. And I think that's the basis for building relationships and building bridges between any sort of divide across team members, is really being open and honest with yourself and how you operate best, and encouraging others to do the same and to share the same. Having that vulnerability, like I said, that authenticity helps to clarify maybe some of the generational nuances of why are one set of behaviors sort of common within one generation versus another, and that you can overcome that just by trying to find the common ground and understanding each other better, and really having empathy for your colleagues and your team members.
What have you learned about Gen Z and how they like to work now that you are working among them?
Yeah, I have found that Gen Z really likes to know that the work they're doing has an impact, and there's a reason why. There's kind of no blind following of, okay, this is just the way we've always done it, so that's why we're doing it. Or so it's not only the impact of the work that they're doing, but the impact of the broader company and alignment with values is really important. The ownership piece I also find really important, of being able to take on something, even if it feels outside of their depth, and creating that space to say, okay, this is something new, it's a challenge, but helping them work against sort of any self-doubt that comes out of being early on in their career, to say, hey, you can tackle this, and your team is here to support you through challenges, but take it and run with it, is really kind of the best instances that I found of Gen Zs are ready to take on those challenges, to find their own ways forward, to have that independence, and but ultimately still to feel very connected to their team and not isolated, and that while they are able to have that independence and that ownership, that they aren't alone in the pursuit of whatever challenge they're tackling. Because when you feel like you're alone and you're working through something really hard, that can wear on you pretty quickly. So yeah, having that support is key as well.
So when Gen Z starts to take over most executive roles, what changes do you think we'll see in the manufacturing industry regarding how companies are run?
I feel that Gen Z is really good about crossing any kind of divides, as far as, right, inclusivity is really important to most Gen Zers that I've found, and inclusivity comes in a whole variety of forms. But when it comes to key decision making within businesses, of making sure that you're taking into account different perspectives, and really considering a variety of angles that will allow you to make better decisions for your business. I think you'll see that more and more with Gen Z leaders, of there being, kind of less closed door meetings, like you had to be in the room kind of thing, where voices all across companies will be heard. And I don't think that that's, necessarily a weakness of manufacturers today, but it's just a growing opportunity to take into account sort of all levels of your operations and your teams, and how that can inform your decisions for the growth of the company.
So what could an executive from an older generation learn from you regarding how you run your company?
That's always a hard one, because I still feel like I have so much to learn, and so I don't want to I guess come off overly confident in that. Yeah, I'm still early on and have a whole lot of room I welcome mentorship and advisory. I've always prioritized leading with empathy. I just find that allows me to connect best with the members of my team, with customers, with partners, is just really getting to know people, and focusing on those relationships and building those relationships. Because at the end of the day, what else are we doing this all for, right? If not for getting to know people and supporting each other. So yeah, leading with empathy has just been my core focus. And I think sometimes in older generations, that maybe is interpreted as crossing more traditional lines of professionalism, but you can be professional and personal, and have those close connections with people, and that will ultimately make you more effective at your job.
Thank you for watching this episode of Gen Z in Manufacturing. Please make sure to like and share the episode. To view previous episodes, visit manufacturing.net. If you are a member of Gen Z and would like to discuss your experience in the manufacturing industry, please contact Nolan Beilstein at nolan@ien.com.